Well, welcome to Unedited. It's good to be here with you today on this nice summer day. My name is Jordan. I'm joined by
Ethan.
And how are you doing, Ethan?
Good.
Yeah.
I always feel so awkward when there's the pause, I'll just say, and I'm joined by, and you just have to say your name.
Yeah.
It's like when you pick up a phone or you like the voicemail
Yeah.
thing, and it's like, say your name after the tone, and you say it, and you're like, I don't remember how to say my name.
Yeah. That's funny that you say that, actually, because it would make more sense for me to say both of our names and then just go into it and make it a little less choppy. But I appreciate just putting you on the spot like that, and then you could just say your name, right? So anyhow, this is turning into a too long of a dissertation on names. But welcome to Unedited. We hope you're doing well today. We hope you're having yourself a good week. Today on this show, we're going to have a couple of segments that you're used to. We're going to be talking about what's in our feed. We're going to be chatting a little bit about The Office.
Oh, boy.
Just leave it at that for a second.
Excited.
And about water issues. We're going to be talking about water and the importance of water and what happens when we go without. Our Parley today is going to feature a little chat about something in the summer known as the sun and where we both stand on these things. And we're going to be talking about In the Neighborhood. It's grad season, and we are still continuing at the Neighbourhood Church, going through a series through the book of First Peter. And Pastor Louis, what do you call him again? PLH? PLH shared some thoughts with us this past week. So we're going to chat a bit about that. But why don't we head right into this? We're going to talk about what was in our feed, what we thought was interesting.
In my feed.
Well, I just have to say really quick that you mentioned the segments that we're talking about have like the three vital parts of human existence: the office, water, and the sun.
There you go.
So this is a very vital episode.
You better pay attention to this one.
Yeah,
take notes,
right.
even, actually.
Yeah. Well, I can go first, I guess, because
all right.
You're such a gentleman me to go first.
I'd love it.
So let's get into it. My in my feed this week is something that's been around my feed for a while, actually, which has been a spin-off of The Office.
Yes.
So
It's
even
happening.
just based off of me saying that, what do you feel about that when I say that?
I immediately want to say don't do it.
Yeah.
Because The Office was truly one of the best shows of the last, I don't know, many years, right? And I felt like they had such a brand with it. Steve Carell played such a pivotal role in that thing,
good.
right? And I don't know, to me, when I hear about a spinoff of The Office, I'm immediately thinking like, oh, please don't ruin it. Please don't destroy what was once there, right?
Yeah.
But it could be good too. I see that there's a different plot detail that's coming out through this one, right?
Yeah.
The last one was Dunder Mifflin, talked about paper. This one is actually about a newspaper that was failing.
You're stealing my feed here, man.
Am I taking it from you?
So I told him just before the show that I was going to be doing this, and he had to look it up real quick.
I did.
You're really good at gathering information.
But do what I can.
By the way, Ashley is mentioned in the show notes here. She says The Office was a spinoff of the British Office.
That is true.
It was kind of an American reboot, which we appreciate.
Yes.
But there's two reasons why I think most people would feel what you're feeling without jumping ahead here.
Okay.
Like you're trying to beat me to the punch.
I'm trying to take the whole thing.
You're
here.
thirsty for it.
So,
yeah, we're all excited about this feed
my
piece.
water segment.
Yeah, that's right. We're all excited about it. But the reason I think that lots of people would feel trepidation around having not a reboot, sorry, what's this called again? It's a spin-off. Having a spin-off is because the original UK Office with Ricky Gervais was incredibly dry. What was his name? Brent. What was the guy? Ricky Gervais' character's name was, anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to be able to remember anymore. But Brent something. Ricky Gervais' character was so deplorable, so unloved. But it's a big part of the dry British comedy is like, this guy's just an absolute twit, and he's just, he's making a mess of things. He's embarrassing, and the characters are everything's very cringy, everything's very dry. And then when The Office redoes it, you see them lean into, so the original UK Office worked for its place, for its time, didn't really translate to American audiences too well. And then when the American Office did it, I think that they kind of bottled lightning for the time. Because for the time, the office experience, the 9 to 5, working at some dead-end job, the questions and the interactions and the even the romances that people had in the show were relatable at the time of its airing. But something Steve Carell said is, and he might have been referring to different things, but he said, you couldn't do The Office today. And I agree.
Yeah.
Where you can't redo this. Parks and Rec even went in a different direction, which was not technically a spin-off, but some of the showmakers went and did Parks and Rec, and they had to take it a bit of a different direction. It was more slapstick. It was more, sort of fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the reasons is because if you're to try to just make David Brent, thank you, Ashley, for David Brent as Ricky Gervais' character. If you just try to capture that again, you're not going to get it.
No.
So I think most people are going to feel that way. And I think a lot of people are like, I love The Office as a show, kind of staggered to the end of season 9 where it finally concluded. And the last couple of seasons were a little iffy, but we made it. So it's good. Let's just call it done.
Just call it a.
So I think people don't want a season 10 of The Office,
Yeah.
But like you pointed out, this is actually going to be based in a different setting. It's not going to have any of the original characters. It is a spin-off. Here's what this publication from Variety said from an interview. The official log line for this spin-off says, the documentary crew that immortalized Dunder Mifflin's Scranton branch is in search of a new subject when they discover a dying historic Midwestern newspaper and the publisher trying to revive it with volunteer reporters. So completely different setting, still sort of set in one of these small, almost like a bottle situation. Dunder Mifflin, Scranton branch was a small branch. Even Parks and Rec, we're talking about municipal government in a smaller city. And what do you think about that? Does that kind of change how you feel about it?
It does. It definitely does. Actually, I kind of like it. Once I read that part and saw what they're going for, I could see this being fun. I could see there being so many angles you cover with this thing, especially with them being volunteers.
Yeah.
And so
that's right.
it can actually relate to life, I think, in some funny ways and some funny situations.
Yeah.
It makes me want to check it out more a little bit now. It is interesting. There's not a single character. I bet you there will be cameos though. And
I think so.
I could sort of see somebody like how can you not have Kevin pop in for something, at least even just being the mailman or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but it's fascinating.
Being the mailman, he owns a bar at the end of The Office. Why'd he become a mailman?
This is New Times, right? So he has to, they're a newspaper. They
He's
get mail.
evolving,
They get mail, right?
Yeah.
So,
okay.
But no, I think this definitely sounds a little bit more interesting, and I definitely will check it out. There's no way I'm not gonna tune into this and give it a chance and give it a go. My initial thought though, whenever stuff like this happens, is a little bit of caution though, because we've seen some of the past errors of this kind of stuff, right? So even with comedy movies like Dumb and Dumber, for some people that's the gold of comedy, and then they made Dumb and Dumberer, and then they made the Dumb and Dumber 2, right? And those had varying opinions, but for the most part they were seen as quite letdowns, right?
Yeah.
Happy Gilmore is now in right now in the works. They're making a Happy Gilmore 2.
What?
And it's going to be released on Netflix. Shooter McGavin's coming back. Adam Sandler's going to be there.
Okay, well, Adam Sandler will do anything right now. So.
Well, I think at this point, it's let's just say it's lucrative, right? It'll do well for them, right?
Apparently, did you see his new movie? Was it Spaceman? Was the name of it?
I don't know. I haven't followed him in a little bit.
I'm interested in watching it because it's a dramatic role.
Okay.
And his dramatic roles are very good.
Yes. Yeah.
Like Uncut Gems.
Yes.
Was crazy.
He's a talented actor.
Yeah.
And I think he kind of pigeonholed himself so much in just comedy that when he broke out, it was like a breath of fresh air to many people, right?
Sort of like Jim Carrey when he did Eternal Sunshine and the Spotless Mind.
That's true.
I feel like a lot of us were like, whoa.
Yeah.
This guy's...
Yeah.
And then he did the movie 23, which I think he probably performed really well in, but the movie 23 was pretty bad.
What was the one he did before Eternal Spotless that was a little bit serious? Because he had Ace Ventura, he had The Mask, The Cable Guy. Was that one that was sort of comedic but a little creepy, right?
I think The Cable Guy was like a funny horror movie.
Yeah,
I think that's what comes to my mind.
Oh, it was The Truman Show. That's
Truman Show. There we go. Yes.
And what a crazy concept that movie. I'm gonna go back and watch that. Actually.
So good, and it's a real mind blower for sure. But just let's back
on
to,
topic.
Back to this documentary crew. I think it's great for them to move on. I am really excited to see how they handle the idea of working with volunteers.
Yes.
So me and you
that's
working
why
at a church,
it's intriguing. Yes.
We work with volunteers a lot.
Yeah.
And we both genuinely love it. It's amazing.
100%.
But I also know that sometimes you're sitting there and you'll be like, this could be a TV show. You know what I mean? And like talking with, like, I have a youth leader team. They're all volunteers. We know that the stuff that we go through, the stuff that goes on, and the interesting situations that take place when you've got a group of volunteers together is just like amazing. It's like comedy gold sometimes, you know, where you're like, how did this happen? How did we get here? You know? And I just think that that's going to be a really, really cool spin. So I'm excited to watch it, partially just because I think it's Greg Daniels is the big name attached to this one. Yeah. So see, I love that you looked it up because you're able to confirm all this stuff with me right away here. Yeah. There we go. Yeah. So the only thing is that I personally really love Michael Schur. Okay. Is that the name? Am I thinking properly? The guy who did the Good Place? It's Michael Schur, right?
Could be. I'm going to agree with you on this
for
one.
me here. But yeah,
that was Michael Schur. Yeah.
Yeah. So Michael Schur, I just wasn't too sure if it had the right last name. But
it's an early morning.
I really like what Michael Schur does, and so I'm a little bit disappointed that at least he's not listed as involved here. I think he's the GOAT of TV comedy these days. Mm-hmm. So, did you watch The Good Place?
I didn't. No.
That show's amazing.
I might have to go back and check it out.
Ashley likes it as well.
Getting a thumbs up from producer Ashley here. Yeah.
So I feel, I've taken enough of our time on this slice specifically, this feed item here, but I feel that it's going to be good. I'm excited for it. Even if it's bad, I'm excited for it.
Me too. Now that you mention it, I think it's just cool to see this kind of come out, and it's going to be interesting to see what the results are. Yeah. And I think you touched on something during your talk there that I want to elaborate on just for a minute too, is that trying to remake The Office what it was now wouldn't work. No. Because the times have changed so much. Like you look back at some of those episodes and some of that stuff just wouldn't even fly right now in 2024, right? Like, it's true. Do you get what I'm saying? Like some of it just wouldn't work and it wouldn't make any sense and would borderline maybe be a bit too offensive at times, right? So I think this is just going to be a way of keeping up with where we're at and putting something out there that people can relate to in 2024. So yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it pans out. Yeah. Want me to tell you what I found in my feed?
I would love to. Wait, tell me what it is, and then I'll look it up first.
The city of Calgary had a water main break. So you got to look
crazy.
that up. Okay?
I actually heard about this.
Yeah. They say that this is like a one in every 100 years kind of thing. And so
right now, planning for it.
Right now, they're under a water boil advisory in many places, but also they're being told to conserve water. And so in this article that I pulled up, it says that the Calgarians are saving roughly 50 Olympic-sized swimming pools of water per day right now. Isn't that a lot of water when you think about that? Like, that's crazy.
I mean, I just try to even understand how much one Olympic-sized swimming pool has.
Exactly.
There's a lot of water.
Yeah, I know.
Like, how long would that last one household?
Long. I almost think that'd be a year, if not.
You think so?
You gotta think it's gotta be a long time, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends how much
you could leave your sprinklers on in your front yard, and like it doesn't even make a dent in that thing. Like,
it's interesting.
It wouldn't even fill. Like, it wouldn't even come close to filling the bottom, right?
These are facts, people. Everything Jordan's saying.
I'm saying here.
Don't even fact check it.
This is something else.
You could leave your sprinklers on for 6 years, and that wouldn't be empty. Wow. That's what Jordan says.
Maybe. No. I cut off my sprinklers, eh?
Oh yeah, I don't have sprinklers.
I literally cut them.
What? Why would you do that?
I didn't want them. I'm going to use manual ones.
Why don't you just shut them off? Why'd you have to cut them?
Because there's all sorts of leaks and stuff that happen with these things. I had a good buddy, who didn't realize one of his sprinklers had a leak, and his water bill came up to $450 for that month. Yeah. And he couldn't figure it out until he finally figured out that one of his sprinklers had a leak. And
Can't you shut off your sprinklers at the tap?
You can, but everything goes underground, right? Like all your hoses and stuff are under the grass, right? Yeah. And so I guess you could supervise your sprinklers, but I don't know anybody who really looks at them every day.
Where the sprinklers are hooked up to, there should be a shut off so that even if they're leaking, you just shut it off, right?
It still comes through somehow.
Really?
When the sprinkler's on. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
There are different ways for it to sneak through. Because I guarantee you he would have had it off. And this was just a real pain for him to get. And so that's not why I did it, though. I was having other issues with it and whatnot. And I just kind of wanted to get back to the old fashioned way of putting a sprinkler in the front yard and
throw it out there,
letting it go. The problem is to take something like that out, you'd have to dig up your whole ground. So the hoses are staying where they are.
Yeah.
I'm just giving it a cut. Maybe one day I'll look at fixing it again.
So do you think Calgarians are running their
sprinklers
this summer?
I don't think they are right now. So apparently they're saying just the essential stuff, right? And just to kind of stay away from water consumption because they want to conserve enough water so that when they do turn it back on, they're able to go back without a boil advisory pretty quickly. But the whole thing about this article that got me thinking is it got me thinking, how many sure things do we take for granted? And in my opinion, water is a sure thing. Like you're sure to have water coming out of the taps.
Your mic sure.
You could drink it, and you could shower in it, and like it often feels like it's just one of those things that it's just you don't think twice about. It's a sure thing, right?
Yeah.
But how do you deal with the sure thing when it becomes an unsure thing? And that's what we're seeing.
That's
happening
what the spin-off of this new Office show is.
Well, that's what I'm saying, and it's happening in Calgary right now. Like water is all of a sudden something that's not as taken for granted, and and you got to conserve it, right? Like,
yeah.
So do you waste water ever? Admittedly.
Well, so the mid 2000s when I was a teenager really was like a big push for save water, cut back waste. That was like, or at least where I was living, that was what I was around a lot. So I try to always be mindful, like, did I leave the tap running longer than I needed to? How quick are my showers?
Yeah.
Like I try to pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm also just like inherently aware of the fact that I use a lot of water.
Yes. Yeah.
It's kind of like you're saying, there are things that are just guaranteed things, but until they're not, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do when that, like, I'm just thinking about everybody, all our Calgarian friends, and how that's like just a pretty dramatic shift of
it would be a
lifestyle, shift. I think probably. Eh?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because now, like, you know, you really are adjusting to something that you thought was just so sure. It was so common, right? And I remember when I laughed there when you were talking about like making sure you're not running the tap too long and stuff. Is because when I was in like my teenage years to like my early 20s, I used to love having like a steam shower. So what I would do is I would turn the hot water on, let it run in the bathroom, don't put the fan on, and let it go for about 4 or 5 minutes, get that nice steam going, and then put it back to where you want it, and then jump in at that point.
Wow. And so just to steam up the room.
Yeah. So 5 minutes of water, like that's several liters you're wasting.
You're just
at that
like,
point, right?
If the house I'm staying in has any bathroom issues with, you know, holding moisture,
well, exactly.
It's done. It's done.
And I could tell you where that house is because I was renting a room in the basement from a friend's house at that point.
Oh, really?
He called me on it actually. But here's the funny thing, and this is where I'm even less as educated about water than some people. Is I grew up in a city where the local mine paid the water bill for everybody in the city.
Thompson.
So growing up in Thompson, nobody paid for water. Inco covered the whole thing. And then around 2010 or so, they brought in water meters and people started taking care of their house. And Inco still covered a good budget of the city's water.
Inco's gone now.
Well, they're still there, but Valley owns it now. Yeah. But it's Valley who brought these changes in. They didn't want to cover the whole town's water. They would cover a certain portion of it, but they brought meters in. So for me, growing up as a kid, water really was unlimited. Yeah. We didn't pay for it. You know what I mean? And we didn't see no bills for it or nothing. So we really developed these bad habits with water without even realizing. And then I moved to Saskatoon and I started doing what I was telling you, renting a room in someone's basement. And then they probably get their water bill and they see an extra, you know, $70-$80 on there a month.
Yeah.
They start asking questions about how much water we're using.
Yeah.
Right? And then I realized, oh my gosh, what was kosher when you didn't pay the bill is definitely not kosher when you are paying the bill. And I think that says something, right?
Yeah.
About responsibility even.
Well, and we're just talking about the bill here, but it's also interesting to think about just the responsibility of like, how much do we have to do to maintain clean water and to keep, you know, how much fresh water is used and even dispensed of. Something Ashley's written in the notes here. So she lived in Kenya for 6 years. I believe it was 6. And she said that they used to save gray water from the shower. So gray water is like not sewage, right? It's water. Yeah. So from the shower to flush the toilet, which is smart. I've seen lots of bathrooms making like newer houses will have some of this stuff built in with mind, you know, where
conserve eco,
or when you wash your hands, the outflow of the water from the sink goes into the toilet tank so you can flush with it. It's interesting. And Ashley said that they were only allowed to shower for 5 minutes or have a bucket shower once every 2 days.
And that's interesting.
So that's just a different part of the world.
Definitely.
Kenya is not underdeveloped or anything, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just a matter of like, I'm assuming it's because of the during drought, she says specifically. Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's
Well,
just a matter of depending what sort of access you have, I suppose. We were in a drought for like 3 years in Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
Wait, maybe more.
Yeah.
I feel, I don't want to put a
It's
time on
been
it.
crazy summers with no rain though.
Yeah.
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 And somehow we still kept it all going,
Yeah,
right?
and then we just have the wettest spring of all time this year, which is great. But
I went to a camp in northern Manitoba growing up, and out there you use like the outdoor biffies, so you don't have running water in your bathrooms. But we did have showers, and they'd always give you camp rules in the first week, and they'd always say 2-minute showers from everyone.
yeah,
As like you're in there, and like someone's in there for like 15. Right?
yeah. I remember
singing
those
songs
showers
and just enjoying the morning,
taking everybody else's shower
and
time.
admittedly, that was probably me at one point.
Yeah, I remember those showers at Northern Pentecostal Campus, the camp you're talking
That's the
about.
one,
Right?
yeah.
I remember those showers being a saving grace one summer, where I was like, "Oh, I'm so thankful that they've got showers here." Anyway, interesting. Calgary, hang in there. Hope
Yes.
you guys are doing okay.
Absolutely. Good
it's-
on you for saving that water. Like, it's incredible to think of 50 Olympic-sized pools
That's
of
right.
water being saved every day. So
That's
good
right.
on you. And hopefully you get back to just normal water living soon.
It's good awareness of there's communities in Saskatchewan that
Yeah.
don't have clean
Absolutely.
water, that don't have running water the way that
Absolutely.
we enjoy it. So it's a good reminder that we have a lot to be thankful for.
Yeah, and honestly, that's what it comes down to. I think it does put us in our place when things like that happen, to recognize that it's a privilege to have clean water, and it's a
Yeah.
privilege to have that, because even in our own province and definitely around the world, that's such a luxury and something that people want, right?
Mm.
People need that for us. It's easy to take for granted, and
Mm.
so hopefully Calgary, just things keep going well, and look forward to getting that back hooked up for you.
Hmm.
I guess we'll parlay. You ready to parlay?
I'm ready to parlay.
I'm ready to parlay. We are in the summer months, and in the summer months, right now, it feels like we're in like the borderline like spring, fall months, with the amount of moisture we've had. And,
Yeah.
like, rain and like kind of cooler days.
This is an Ontario spring in my mind, because
Is that how it feels?
Well, yeah. So
Okay.
living in Ontario, particularly Thunder Bay,
Yeah.
rain all spring. Well, rain through the summer too, honestly. But I'm so used to dry springs here,
Yeah.
just where you get 2 or 3 rains, good ones,
Yeah.
and then you're like, farmers are just praying for just a sprinkle,
Yeah.
just anything.
And that's what I'm so happy about this year for the moisture,
Yeah.
is they really need it, right?
Yeah.
And Environment Canada is still calling for like a dry, hot summer going forward.
Oh yeah.
At this point, a lot of us are saying, "I'll see it when I believe. I'll believe it when I see it," kind of thing, right? But at the same time, though, apparently there's been enough moisture so far that it shouldn't be a problem this summer.
Oh yeah.
It's going to carry them over. So
It's interesting.
I am happy about that. But what we'll parlay about today is summer activities, and in particular, do you like to be in the sun or out of the sun? What's your relationship with the sun?
Parley.
Do you like to be sitting in the sun? Like, do you like the sun shining on you, feeling its effects that way, or would you rather be out of the sun? And do you want to know why I thought about this week?
Why is that?
It's because we finally had a hot day
Yesterday.
where I was able to sit on my patio and kind of relax and have a book.
Beautiful
But
day.
the first thing I did when I got out there, besides wiping my table because it was kind of dirty from the rain,
Yep.
the first thing I did when I got out there is I put the umbrella up.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed my afternoon out there. I probably sat out there for about 3 hours or so.
Interesting.
But I realized that I don't like being in the sun. I love the effects of the sun. I like the heat. I like the warmth it gives. I like the look of it. In fact, even just today, looking outside my window and seeing sun completely changes my mood, kind of thing, right? It makes me feel better when I see the sun outside. This is why in winter in Saskatchewan, I don't get as upset, because I would take the -40 as long as you give me the sun.
And we do get the sun.
You give me the -40 with
Yeah.
clouds, it's even worse, right?
Yeah.
So
That just makes you want to light a fire underneath your butt and sit on it to stay warm.
Well, that's
You're
what I
just
mean.
like,
It's so cold, right?
Yeah.
And so do you like to be in the sun or do you like to be out of the sun? I think I prefer to be out of the sun, but I do love the effects of the sun. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Where would you land here?
So I've got so much to say about this. I feel like every time we parlay, I have so many things to say. But let me answer you with a story from my childhood.
All
okay.
right. I'm looking forward to it.
So I was living in Ontario at the time in a little town called Blind River, and I would go out to our Aerostar van. Do you remember Aerostars?
Yeah, of course. We had one. Ours was red.
Dude, ours was green.
Was that?
Those things were tanks.
It was like
man.
a teal. Yours
Yeah.
was like a teal, because I remember
Kind
that
of,
green.
Yeah. And it was we would go out and so on a summer's day, I would open it up. By the way, the Aerostars had no tinted windows, just clear glass all the way around.
Absolutely.
Big, huge tub of metal and glass.
Yeah.
And I remember I have this distinct memory. I think we're packing to leave for a trip or something. My mom had sent me out to the car to get something or put something in there, whatever. I open up the car door and it's just this heat radiating out of the vehicle, hot summer day. Yeah. And I just laid across the back benches and the sun was coming through the window, just hitting my back. And I just laid in this heat that was just like covering every part of me and the sun hitting me. And I feel like that's the earliest time in my life where I remember just being like, I love laying in the sun.
You love the sun, eh?
I just love it. And the idea of being in a little oven of a van at the same time was nice too. Mm-hmm. So all through my life now, I just love laying in the sun. Okay. I just love it.
So you're a beach person.
Yes.
So when I go to the beach, I bring that little tent with me. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The little tent you set up that kind of gives you a roof.
Yeah. Like
and I lay under there, and I only go maybe once, maybe twice a summer. Like my girls do love the beach, so I will obviously go because I want them to have a blast.
Yeah.
But I'm totally chilling under the tent. You're the person who would just sit in the open, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I'm not crazy about beaches.
No.
Honestly. I'll go in the water. Yeah. I mean, I like water sports and stuff.
Yeah.
And what I mean by water sports is like canoeing and kayaking, not like skiing. Or
I thought you meant kneeboarding.
Forget that stuff. No, I hate that stuff.
Okay.
Anyway, but I just could lay in the sun forever. The trick is that I think you have to get out of the sun eventually, because I could lay out there for 4 hours just soaking it up, and I love the feel of the sun just warming up your skin. Yeah. And you start to sweat even, and you're just like, oh, it feels so warm, so good. But you have to get out of the sun. Like this is a requirement of humanity. First of all, like overexposure to the sun can give you cancer, for one thing.
It's not good.
But like, I get where you're coming from, where you need to be in the shade.
Yeah.
I think I'll spend my time dedicated in the sun, or when I'm out doing something, playing tennis on the boat, taking a bike ride, going for a run, whatever. I'll do that stuff just out in the sun. But then I've got to retreat inside.
That's how I feel.
I got to cool down.
Yeah.
I'm putting cold water on my face because the sun out here is deadly.
Even better air conditioning, right? Just like,
yeah, I honestly don't really like air conditioning. Like air conditioning is such a weird, fake, cool air, and it's either over filtered or something. Like feels bad to breathe sometimes in the summer. But anyways,
it does nothing for my allergies, but I ever since having it, it's been kind of a real relief on those kind of days.
Yeah.
So because I've lived in the opposite. In fact, my first home we had was a mobile home up in northern Manitoba. Mm-hmm. Like this is me and Nicole, like the first home we had when we got married, and that thing had no air conditioning at all, and it was in up in northern Manitoba, you get the opposite. You get long cold winters, but you get short, hot summers, right?
Very hot summers.
And with the heat, it was like, oh my gosh, it was just unbearable.
Yeah, and it's muggy, right?
You were in a little box, yeah. Is what it kind of felt like. It was a muggy heat. So I definitely, and in the sun, like I have to have a hat on. I have to have some sunglasses on. Yep. When I play golf, I use a golf cart because I enjoy using the cart, but mainly because I get a roof on the cart too. Mm-hmm. And it shields me from whatever's happening that day. Like I remember a couple summers ago, we played on Canada Day, and it was 44 or something like that outside. It was like the hottest day of the summer.
Wow.
And we actually went, me and three of my friends, and it was crazy. It was unbelievable.
Crazy.
Like when you need to be under there, you need to be like chugging Gatorade, like
yeah.
throughout the whole round.
Do you wear sunblock when you're out in the sun?
I do now. Yeah. I use the spray usually. There's like a spray on one.
Yeah.
So I just spray it on, and
is it aerosol?
I don't know if it is actually. It's a good question. I don't buy it. Nicole buys it.
I don't like aerosol.
I use the cream on my face though. The cream one, I'll put it on my face.
So I went out for a bike ride yesterday, and I made sure I sunscreened up because especially because it's the first big sunny day that I'd be out. I've been out in 18, 19 with some sun and clouds.
Yeah, you didn't get burned.
But
you didn't get burned.
I guess not.
No,
which is good.
I can see it hit you a bit.
Because I was out for a while. Yeah. So I guess to suffice it to say, I really, really enjoy the sun, but I like to wear sunscreen, and I like to be safe and smart. I've had heat exhaustion too many times in Saskatchewan. I feel like in Ontario, it was always a swampy warm, lots of humidity. So you're very aware of it because it's like pressing on you. Your clothes are like, if you wear a cotton shirt, it like gets heavy just from the air. Yeah. Like that's kind of what I grew up with more. But in Saskatchewan, you can be outside, and if that wind hits you, it's just pulling that sweat off your body. You feel dry. You feel the heat of the sun, but there's wind and you feel fine. Then you go inside and you've giving yourself heat exhaustion.
And you're feeling
So
terrible. Yeah.
you got to be really smart.
I've had that before. I remember when I was in college, I used to drink coffee, just like too much throughout the day.
Yeah.
And then go hang out in the sun all afternoon.
Oh,
and,
boy.
And then I'd be feeling
Just
sick at night,
dehydrated.
wondering what was going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't realize drink water, young.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Young guy. But no, definitely. I'm definitely, I love the sun. I'm okay being in it, but I do prefer the effects of it. I do think I like the warmth that it brings.
Yeah.
And I appreciate an umbrella over my head on a sunny day for the most part
Yeah.
or something. And I get the other side. I get some people can just bask in it. I think the sun gives me a bit of a headache too, and that's probably half my issue. Is I know I want to prevent maybe getting a headache just
Probably getting overheated.
from the bright and the
Oh, the bright
overheat. Yeah,
too.
I think it's the
Okay,
bright a bit
interesting.
too. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, but anyhow, why don't you let us know what you think about the sun and what kind of activities you like to enjoy in the sun or out of the sun as
Yeah.
it may be. But
Saskatoon shines, right?
absolutely,
Let's
that's
hear
our motto, right?
Yeah.
So we got sunny days here, but let's talk about in the neighborhood.
In the neighborhood.
It is grad season.
It is grad season. We just had in a couple weeks we're going to be having all the schools are convocating.
Yeah.
There's buildings across Saskatoon where there's going to be 3-4 hour grad convocations happening at these huge venues with thousands of people going. But we had our little church grad banquet last Friday.
Heard it was awesome.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was amazing. So we celebrate the grade 8s and the grade 12s.
Yeah.
And we put special emphasis on the grade 12s. We make a little game out of it. We do a theme. And this year, man, it was so fun and so good. It just makes me think sometimes about how intense that season of my life was, though. Did you have an intense time graduating?
I did.
Yeah.
My grad story is a little crazy though, in a sense.
Well, let's hear it. What happened?
I wasn't the model student when I was in high school. And in grade 10, I got 2 credits out of a possible 8.
What?
And in grade 9, I think I missed 1. And in grade 11, I missed something else. Anyways, I get to my grade 12 year. And I was supposed to graduate in the year 2000. So that was special to us, especially because we got to be that generation who's going to graduate in the new, millennium kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And so I needed, what was it? I needed 13 and a half credits to graduate. And the timetable only allowed for 8 in my grade 12 year.
Wow.
And good news, I pulled it off.
How?
And me and my friend Charlene, actually, she did the same thing. I think we set a record, the teachers told us. So what we did was we took our full schedule, which was 8 credit hours, right?
Mhm.
So you get your 8 credits just from going to school normally. I had a job at A&W that I had to literally give my boss 220 free hours of labor between September to June just to get 2 credits from that. It was called on-job training. So that
Okay.
took me up to 10. There was a
Okay.
course called peer counseling that you could take that met once a month. And you studied a bunch of different issues. I remember I did my paper on drugs actually, because it was one of those things like you had to pick something that was relevant to the time. So I did a paper on that and I got a credit from that. I took a correspondence course on the side. I did a little free work at Videon Cable, which is like the cable company and the radio, and did that, got a credit and something out of that. And,
Wow.
and I can't remember what the other thing was. Oh, baking. I did baking class. So I started school. School was supposed to be 9 to 4. I went in at 8 in the morning to make cookies every morning. And they sold the cookies in the cafeteria. And I had to pull it off. And I was determined.
That's crazy, Jordan.
I grew up so much between grade 11 and 12 kind of.
Yeah.
That I had a buddy who was just a real, he was kind of like he was a cool guy, but he was such a nerd about school, if I could say it that way. He was just always in the books.
Can you
always,
say it that way?
Well, in a nice way. I think it's a great way, right? I hope I'm complimenting him because I'm really trying to. But he was such he was so intense with his schoolwork that it actually motivated me and inspired me to an extent. His name was Andrew. And I remember all of a sudden just thinking, you got to get serious. You want to graduate with your friends. You want to be out in the year 2000. And somehow I pulled it off, man.
That's amazing. Good for you.
And so I remember,
you were on the grind.
Well, no, I was talking with someone this past week that I was literally at my someone in church this past week. I can't remember who it was, but we brought up grad because of the grad banquet. And I was literally at my grad rehearsal because in Thompson, we did it at the end of the year after final exams. That's where the discussion came up, is because in Saskatchewan, some people have already had their grad ceremonies in smaller towns, right?
Yeah.
Which to us, it always came at the very end. I was sitting there at my rehearsal, fingers crossed, just hoping I passed my last exams.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't gotten my marks back yet. No one told me I passed, and no one told me I didn't
same
pass.
for me. Yeah.
So I was sitting there wondering, am I going to walk the line tonight?
Yeah.
And it was an uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah.
And but I made it through. I remember a couple of buddies of mine blew that little horn for me when they called
the
me
air
up there.
horn.
And
Nice.
yeah, it was a blast. I made it out, and I was the complete opposite in college. In college, I really wanted to learn. You were investing money into it,
Mhm.
and I never missed the honor roll when it came to college. But
Yeah,
in
well,
high
you're
school,
a smart guy.
In high school, I wasn't there.
But
I
that's
was having a little too much fun, I guess.
you've introduced the idea of trepidation, right? Like
Yeah.
it's very, very intense sometimes to come up to that moment and be like, what's happening?
I just got to get it done.
Yeah.
As my mindset was just that I this is my goal. There is a way. We're going to create a way. And I literally went down to like one of like the guidance counselors' offices. They're the ones who set your schedule up for you.
Mhm.
And I was like, this is what I need.
Mhm.
Can we do it? And
Mhm.
they kind of looked at me like I was crazy, probably.
So with your experience, you probably have extra empathy for students graduating who are feeling
Oh yeah,
uncertain about the future.
100%, 100%. And you know what? Let's segue into that, because I think one of the more stressful questions that graduates get asked is the question, so what are you going to do after you graduate?
Mm-hmm.
As if it's expected that we have that all figured out
Yeah.
in a perfectly, place, kind of
Perfect succinct way.
like a
where
bow, right? Like it's all
Yeah.
tied up, ready to roll. And,
Yeah.
when people ask me that question, I was just thinking, like, I just want to graduate. Like,
Yeah.
let me enjoy this moment for a second. Let me get to the finish line, and then
Yeah.
I'll figure that out. But I recognize, though, that for some people, they do have a good idea. And for a lot of
Mhm.
people, that question's easy to answer. And they just know, like, I'm going to head off to school and study at university. I'm going to
Mhm.
go to college. I'm going to work at the garage. I got this figured out, which, they're all good options. I'm going to save up some money for a bit and take some time off, which I did for a year, and it actually was kind of beneficial for me, right?
Yeah.
But so I understand that some people haven't answered that question, but I always feel for the people who don't,
Mhm.
because I don't think it's a realistic expectation to have an answer to that, because
Mhm.
who knows what's going to happen. Maybe you do need to take a little bit of time and ponder that and figure that out,
Mhm.
and that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad place for people to be in.
I remember not having a summer job lined up when I
Yeah.
finished school, and
Okay.
I was wanting to go to college, and I knew I wanted to go to college. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I was going to come to Saskatoon and do Bible college. That's what I knew I was going to do.
Mhm.
And that had also changed in my last year, right? Like I wanted to do other stuff, but then I ended up feeling I should do this. So when I graduated, I had no job. I was like, how am I going to go to college? Like, how do I didn't know anything about student loans,
Mhm.
and my parents helped me out with this stuff. Thankfully, I have parents who were willing to do this stuff with me and
Yeah.
help me figure it out. But that's not always the case for everybody,
No.
and you don't know about things that you don't know about.
Yeah.
And do you have a job for the summer? What are you doing after school? People start asking you while you're in the middle of your exams. Well,
Yeah.
what are you doing in the fall? And it's like, oh, I've never thought about the fall
Yeah.
previously. It's always just been school.
I'm worried about this science test.
Exactly.
That's where my head is right now.
Yeah, and it's pretty intense. I think sometimes it's good for us to have these demarcations in our culture or our society where we say, here is a big transition point, and it's good
Yeah.
for all of us to reach this point and to have something to do. And for some of us, you take another year. For some of us, you take a year less. Your wife took a year less, right?
Yeah.
She
Yeah,
graduated early. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, everybody can finish maybe in different times and stuff, but it's good for us to have this thing. But at the same time, I think how we treat it culturally, how we address it, even from a faith perspective, what
Yes.
we teach people about it.
Yeah.
Like with the grads coming out of our church, out of neighborhood youth, I try to tell them, like, there's a through line in all of this. It's going to feel like everything's just falling off right now.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden, nothing makes sense. The floor's out from underneath you.
Yeah.
But there's a through line in all of this, and it's your faith. It's what God has for you in the future,
Absolutely.
And I think it's important for the church to represent that, to say, like, this is an important line that you're crossing, but God is still going to be the same to you moving forward.
Yes.
You've still got your faith community to anchor you.
100.
You've still got like the support and care that you need. It's just an intense time.
Absolutely, it is 100%. And I remember when I was also a youth pastor in the past, and I remember I would often talk to my students, and I would just assure them of that sometimes we use these words in church like calling and different things like that, right?
Mhm.
And I had some youth who were just so stressed out heading into their grade 12 graduation about what's my calling, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
And we always associate calling with what you get paid for 40 hours a week, but that's not really the case all the time biblically, right? Like, our calling as Christians is to love God and to love people.
Yeah.
Is to go out into the world and make a difference. Follow the Great Commission, right? Go out and disciple and baptize and teach them in the name of Jesus, right? Like we all have a common calling that's important to us. Now, whether we do that through working, at the garage or working as a teacher or, maybe going into some sort of full-time ministry or something like that. We all have the ability to live out that overall calling. So I really try to take the stress off of the students and let them know that no matter where you're going here, you need to pray about it. God's going to guide you, and he's going to use you wherever you go. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for some of us, that's very specific. And for others of us, we take a little bit more time to figure it out, but all those places to live in are okay.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be there.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't feel like you have to have everything figured out. Some people's experience is more like mine. They're just glad that they got to the finish line, right? And they need to breathe for a little bit and maybe just take that in and enjoy that moment, right?
That was me with college.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
take some time and just enjoy it. College was another one that was kind of like that too.
Yeah,
I agree. And for others, they've known since they were like in grade 6 that this is what they want to do. And I celebrate that too. Go for it, right? Like get in there and go after it and chase after your goals. But, all of it's good. And, you're at a spot and I like how you put it, you're at a spot where you're making this transition from one spot to another spot, right? And it's okay to take some time in that. And it's also okay to know exactly where you want to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So graduates, congratulations to all of you. We're excited for you and the future and wherever you find yourself. I'll try not to ask you what you're going to do after you graduate, okay? Because I know sometimes that question can come off as, I got to answer this again, or I got to have something smart to say, right? Sometimes it's just okay to say, you know what, I graduated. I'm just enjoying this right now, right?
That's right.
So celebrate those moments. Let's move into a quick little chat here. We'll focus just on one point here. But Pastor Louis was continuing in our teaching series at the Neighbourhood Church this past week on the book of 1 Peter. And he made a couple of points, and I'll read 2 of those, and we could just kind of make our discussion kind of around these 2 thoughts, all right?
Yeah.
But one thing he said was that God didn't call you to fit in, but he called you to stand out, and that normal living leads to normal results.
Right.
And so what comes to your mind when you hear those things?
I mean, normal is just a loaded word.
It is.
Like, I just think when we talk about normal, I think about people saying, well, I'm not normal, or some people wear that as a badge of honor.
Yeah.
And some people use it as a self-deprecating term. Or some people say, I just want to be normal.
Yeah.
That's a very common thing for teenagers to feel
you're
I just wish I was normal.
Yeah. So
that's what I think about. Is I think the term normal is very loaded, right?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. 100%. The word normal can mean different things to different people. It could be used in a positive way. It could be used in a negative way, depending upon the situation or the circumstances that kind of come into it, right? I definitely think, though, so how he used that term was in response to when you look around the world around us and you see what normal is in our society, right? Sometimes normal isn't as desirable as maybe we once thought it would, right? Normal can sometimes feel mundane. It can sometimes feel like exhaustion, kind of feel like you work too much and you don't get to enjoy things enough, and you know what I mean. Like normal can sometimes just feel, in a sense, like like it's just an everyday kind of thing. And in combining that with the idea of God not calling us to fit in but to stand out means that obviously God's got a different path for us. He has different ideals for us. He has different ambitions for us, right? And Jesus talks about a different kingdom, right? And that's how Jesus presents this idea of we're living in something different now. Like, the kingdom of the world says this. And in those days, it was a really difficult kingdom to live in. There was a lot of, persecution and oppression, and, it was very terrible, actually. And his kingdom was to bring the opposite of that. It was to bring freedom. It was to bring love. It was to bring joy and to bring peace and to bring, grace and mercy for people. And I think living within that, God calls us to live within that, not to live within maybe the normal systems that the world has to offer us, right?
Yeah.
But to live in the system of his kingdom. And when we do that, we live different because our ideals are different. We've experienced different. And when you experience different, you can give something different to people around you.
Yeah, even the words you're using, the terminology, just to like touch base on that, talk about that for a second. Talking about kingdoms, so one of the reasons that Jesus talks about the kingdom of heaven, this, if you ever read the Gospels or if you're even interacting with New Testament literature at all, which is literature that comes after Jesus, which is the Gospels, the referencing of the kingdoms is really like, it's something that made sense at the time because there were kingdoms.
Yeah.
They're literally kings and queens that
You can see them.
ruled kingdoms. Yeah. And the nationalities and all of these would be governed by kings and queens and royalty. And so you would see very clearly like laws and boundaries. And so when Jesus talks about his kingdom, he's talking about establishing something. He's trying to contrast it with what is happening around the world as the normal form of governance, right?
Yeah.
And so he comes and he says they expected Jesus to be there's something called messianic expectation, what they expected out of the Messiah, and they expected him to be a new king of Israel. They wanted him to literally be the ruler of Israel, so to overthrow the Roman Empire, which was occupying, and to say, this is us and we're taking over, and he's the hero of the story. But when he came, he starts talking about a different kingdom, not the kingdom of Israel. He's talking about the heavenly kingdom, like God's kingdom.
Yes.
And he says, it's a cool phrase. He says it's upside down.
Yeah.
So if anybody's watched Stranger Things, it's not like that. The upside down is dark and creepy and stuff. But his idea was everything's inverted, where in the world's kingdoms, power comes from the top, and it's like a pyramid, and he flips it upside down and he says the leaders serve, and so anyway, we don't need to get all the way into that, but it's just interesting to, as the reason I say that is in case anybody's not familiar with these terms, it's important when we talk about normalcy, because normalcy is the place you live in, like the world, this term of what everything else around us is doing versus what Jesus said to do, is he directly contrasts and even contradicts the normal with what he tells us to do.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I just had to jump in and say that.
No, I liked it. It's good. And when we think of kingdom too, one of the things I was thinking as you were talking too is that we have to be careful to recognize that his kingdom, there's a futuristic sense, but there's also very much a present sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whenever we see the word heaven in scripture, people often think of like eternity and like somewhere outside of this world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's true. But kingdom of heaven is also very present here. It's what Jesus came to establish among his church, among people who would follow him, people who would believe in him. And like you said, exactly, like the way things are governed right now gives you a certain sense of normal.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that certain sense of normal, especially in certain parts of the world, doesn't feel very fair and doesn't feel very good, right? And yet the kingdom that he came to bring is upside down, completely opposite of what you see in the world. And if we live within that kingdom, we will experience different things within that lifestyle, right? And we'll bring something different to this world because people are used to what they see. They're used to the normal. They're used to what's there, right? And when people start living out like this kingdom lifestyle that Jesus brings about, when we start giving people second chances, when we start exercising grace and mercy, when we start loving each other and caring for those who don't get cared for, different things, right? Like, that's a beautiful expression, I think, of the kingdom of heaven.
You made a really good point, which is what we observe, us calling it normal.
Yeah.
Like what we see around us as secure, as trustable, like something that's sure. We talked about this just earlier. Everything's sure until it's not sure, right?
That's right.
I think that's really how we define normal. And so we look around the world around us, like people and how they live their lives, and we think, well, that's normal because that's secure and that's predictable and that's got a rhythm. And so just maybe to throw out some examples, I think really when people are talking about wanting to be normal, what they're really saying is that they want security and acceptance. They want to feel safe. They want to feel like they fit in. They want to feel that they belong, and that there's nothing wrong with them. That's what they want when they say normal. If somebody's wanting to be normal. Now we could talk about people who don't want to be normal, and I think that's, you got your own points about that. But just focusing on people who are like maybe somebody who's maybe like a young couple who's trying to have kids and they can't, and they just think, I wish we were just normal or something like that. What is that? It's really saying, I really wish we could have counted on what we wished we could have counted on, or to that person who's struggling with mental health and they're fighting depression and they feel held back and they feel constantly weighed down and they think, I just want to be normal. Like they want the security of being able to be like comfortable in life, to be able to live life and to see people living life what they would think is more fully, and to say, I want that. So it's not really normal, that it's just that we normalize the things that we think bring us security and that bring us fullness and that bring us belonging and hope. And so, normal covers all of that, I think, when we say we want to be normal. But the promise of Jesus is that you'll be abnormal. You're not going to look like everything around you. But what you're gaining in that is security, is belonging, is 100%. Acceptance, is hope. And all of these things can address all this stuff that you want out of normal, but you're not going to do it normally. Yeah. And it makes space for us to be individuals. It makes space for us to be people and to have our own trials and to have our own frustrations. And we look around and we say, my life doesn't look like everybody else. I'm dealing with different problems, or I'm not getting success in this way that this person is, or I don't have the same money as this person. And we say, okay, well, I'm not supposed to, because my acceptance, my belonging, my purpose, my hope belongs in Jesus. Yeah. And all the rest of the stuff is going to be abnormal. It's all going to be different. Yeah. I like that. That's good. Jesus brings that to us, right? He changes the way we look at life altogether.
100%. Yeah. We're going to leave it at that. I like that point. So that's very good. We're going to move into our final segment here. How about you?
How about you?
How about you?
How about you? So we're going to ask you about some of the stuff we talked about today. But before we did that, we had a comment come in last week. Last week we discussed Kindles and ebooks and regular books, right? Yeah, which is so funny because this past week, anyways, I'll share the story next week. But I just realized if someone listens in, I'm going to give something away here.
No, that's good. Save it. Yeah.
But the comment that came in said this: I have an old Kindle that I got in the early 2010s, but it doesn't hold a charge anymore. Yeah, that happens, right?
Classic.
It says ebooks.
That's one of the issues with ebooks, right?
That's it, yeah.
You can lose a charge.
100%.
A physical book doesn't lose battery.
Says ebooks are nice because of convenience. I agree that they're good for traveling. Typically, I prefer physical copies of books, though. There's a series of books called Dragonlance that have mostly been out of print for over a decade. I have about 170 of the 122 or so books.
220?
That's amazing. I'm amazed that
what is this series?
This person has 170.
Is this what is it? Just a chapter at a time? Each book is just a chapter? How do you have 220? That's even longer than
We're gonna have to check it out. But he said I could buy the remainder on ebook, but they wouldn't look nice on my shelf. So I'm resigned to looking at an ever-used bookstore I could find to try and get the remaining books. And to you, I say, do it. Search those books out and find it. I love collecting things. That's the nature that I have. Yeah. And so when I read this, I'm like, yeah, you can't buy them on ebooks. You want to get those physical copies, especially with something like that you hold kind of dear to you. If it was just I want to get a series and stuff, I'm more than good with ebooks. But I think in this particular case, this is collection. If you got 170 of 220, you need the 50.
You got to finish. Yeah, I agree. Sometimes you want the physical book. Absolutely. That sounds, I don't know how you're moving on from 220 books.
I know.
That's longer than the Wheel of Time.
You're going to have to look it up.
That's insane.
We're going to have to get familiar here.
Good for you. Do you have anything that's a huge collection for you, where you've got many volumes in one thing? Or
not at the same thing. I collect records, vinyl records. I used to do the same thing with CDs, compact discs, right?
Right, but it's not of one set, one series.
And books, I do collect lots of books, but I separate them between genre. Okay. But I've never actually had that series where it's the one thing and I have to get the same thing out of everything. I guess when I was a kid, I did hockey cards, and I still love the idea of that, collecting hockey cards. Yeah, hockey cards. So drain your bank account nowadays. I've seen
Yeah.
what they cost,
Yeah.
right? Maybe that's why I haven't gotten back into
So
it.
it's
but-
a friendly reminder to anybody who's got like an
So-
orange box full of old hockey cards from your childhood. See
Yes.
what those are worth.
Yes.
Oh,
Well, remember that story last year in Saskatchewan where somebody found a box of cards in their basement that would have contained likely 10 to 15 Wayne Gretzky rookie cards. I think it sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. I can't remember what the exact bid was, but
Wow.
they made bank on it. Yeah.
Wow.
So it was huge.
Yeah.
But yeah, let us know if you collect anything. That's a little spin-off here of what about you? But maybe you like collecting something. Let us know what interests you. Today we talked about a few things. We talked about the Office spin-off.
Yep.
Are you yay or nay on that? Does that frustrate you? Does
Yeah.
it intrigue you?
Would love to hear your thoughts.
What are your water stories? Have you had stories where you've had to conserve? Have you had stories where you've been reckless like I was when I was younger? And I'm sorry
Yeah.
for that, but I've gotten past that, right?
He's penitent.
But maybe you need to, want to share a thought about that. And for this summer, are you like Ethan and you're going to soak up every sun ray
Get in that
with
sun.
sunblock on?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, SPF. I think
proper
it has to be
SPF.
above what, 30?
Well, I use 30, but
Okay,
it's
yeah.
because it's a sports sunblock.
Has to be
so-
somewhere up
Yeah,
there.
yeah, you gotta have
And-
something.
Or you're like me. You're gonna enjoy the heat and you're gonna love the heat, but you're gonna put an umbrella over you and you're gonna kind of enjoy the day as well.
Yeah.
And do you have any thoughts about graduation? Any grad stories? Any fun grad stories? Any things that stressed you out during grad? I actually think this is such a pivotal topic.
Yeah,
actually.
let's really hear about graduation because
Yeah.
and it's helpful for people to tell their stories too. If we hear your thoughts,
Absolutely.
other grads that are feeling really nervous right now can glean from that, right? They
A-
can benefit from it.
Absolutely. So share your grad stories, and I think that's it for us. We're gonna sign off. You ready?
I am ready.
It's almost lunchtime. I want to go eat something.
Getting a whistle dog?
You know what? Not yet. But thanks for bringing it up. We're gonna get there, okay? And
All right.
maybe we'll eat one together, and we'll record the footage, and we'll let you in on that experience
Yes.
with ranch sauce.
No.
So-
Cancel the ranch sauce, but we'll see you next week for episode 6.
Have a good one. Talk to you later.
Unedited is a ministry expression of the Neighbourhood Church. Hosted by Ethan Andrews and Jordan McClellan. Produced by Ashley Drayton. Find us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.